This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland, and kind of a / China Tech News Flash, because this whole ordeal is about China Tech News Flash. This is a rant about Patreon specifically, and the way Western companies do business versus the way Chinese companies do business, especially at the retail level, the service level. If you don't know, I have created a website and a Patreon page called China Tech News Flash. It's not doing very well. I mean, I've only got, I think, $30-something a month. But I enjoy doing it, and I was hoping to try to, to build it up one of these days if I had time to do some marketing. So 100. In order to do that, I got a subscription to Vimeo because that's what Patreon recommended. Well, that was $20 a month, so that's already $240 a year. And so and not to mention Patreon says 5 to 12% fees. But by the time, if you're less than $100 a month, it's more than that. For me, it seems like it's closer to 20. So I get a thing from Vimeo saying, "Well, you've got too much. You've got too much. Your memory, you've run out. You've got to step up." I said, "Well, okay, I'll look into it." I got onto Vimeo, and $50 a month. So now I'm up to $600 a year to keep using Vimeo. So I said, I'm losing money, and so it's the 29th. Yeah, tomorrow my Vimeo account expires. And I don't know what's going to happen to the 100 videos on Patreon. So because it's actually, the Vimeo is embedded in the Patreon, on each Patreon episode, or whatever you want to call it, video or podcast or whatever. So I contacted Patreon, and they said, and they took a while to respond, but they said COVID, blah 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 blah. Okay. But here, I want to, and furthermore, not only have I got those 100 Vimeo videos on Patreon, I created a website, www.chinatechnewsflash.com, and I have 100 posts on there with the Patreon link, so people would go to the Patreon link. So anything, if I have to do anything, I have to do 200 changes. And, so I'm going to read to you, I want to read to you what Patreon say. And they're always so nice. "I'm afraid changing the hyperlinks for those video posts will not be possible." See, because I emailed, I said, "Well, listen, I can't afford Vimeo anymore, and so what I want to do is I want to replace those Vimeo videos on my 100 Patreon posts with a hyperlink, and I'll just use a private hyperlink on YouTube, and no one will see, no one will have that, and even if somebody gets the link, I'm not that worried about it. I sure can't afford $600 a year, so." "I am afraid changing the hyperlinks for those video posts will not be possible. Whenever a patron needs to edit a video post and add another video to it, they need to create a new post instead. Unfortunately, we don't have a feature that would allow creators to embed another video to the same post. I understand that this is not ideal, and we'll share your feedback with our product and engineering teams. Let me know if this information is helpful, and if you need any additional assistance, I'll be happy to help! Exclamation point! Stay safe and healthy! Kindly! In other words, go to hell. And I'm sitting there and I'm going like, okay, I've got 100 videos, and they want me to not only video, posts Posts, that means all the stuff I put in the bottom, all the details I put, the keywords, the search words and everything. You're talking about days of my life that I've already spent doing this. Yet I can't sit there and go on to each post, and they give you a choice: Vimeo, hyperlink, text, I forgot what it is, picture, whatever. I can't just go click on I can't click on edit, click on a hyperlink, and replace it. So anyway, I'm screwed. I'm totally screwed. I mean, and I've started thinking about, well, gosh, I lived in China for 16 years and I watched how the Chinese work. And I've been focusing on Huawei and ZTE and, high tech in general in China. And I'm sitting there thinking, you know what? If Patreon were in China, they would last about 3 months, and they would be put out of business by 10 or 20 fast-moving, customer-satisfying, listening to their customers, making improvements in about 3 months. That's how the Chinese work. They move bigger, better, faster, and cheaper. Patreon they would laugh at Patreon in China. They would call it a joke if anybody tried to use it there. So I responded back to Patreon and, said, well, it sounds like, typical capitalism, and it's true, it's just like, what are you doing? So I got on the internet, of course, competitors to Patreon. Well, I get one called Memberful. And so I'm reaching out to Memberful, and I told them that I, was disappointed in Patreon, and he was also very nice. And he responded back, oh, well, Patreon is our parent company. So now Patreon owns the 2 websites that use this kind of model. And then I went to Indiegogo, but they're only good for 60 days. And then I went to another one, and they wanted like $80 a month to upload videos. It's just, this is not for people like me. And of course, I can't use GoFundMe because I need something that long term to build an audience. So anyway, so that's capitalism. Capitalism cannot survive without monopoly markets and fixed prices. I mean, that's just the way it is. And it's just really, really discouraging. And the problem is that, and I know this is going to upset a lot of you out there, but Westerners in general, compared to the Chinese, and the way they work hard, they work late. They they do what it takes to get the job done. If they have to live above their little shop for 30 years in a cramped apartment above their store, in order for their kid to go to college, they'll do it. This is the Chinese sacrifice, delayed gratification, doing what it takes to do the right thing. And of course, I'm idealizing. There's a lot of crooks in China. There's 1.4 billion people, and there's a lot of crooks in China, just like everywhere else, which is why they established the social credit score system, which is actually more about companies to go after bad, illegal, polluting, thieving, non-tax paying companies. There's a lot more about that than in actual individuals. So, for 3,000 years, the West has gotten so used to just smash and grab. Alexander the Great, 4th century BC. The Crusades, in the Middle Ages. 500 years of colonialism and imperialism. We just, why work when we can just, create a monopoly, fix prices, or just smash and grab, steal, invade, exterminate, exploit, extract. That's what we've been doing for 3,000 years. And that is not the case in China, and no moral equivalence for China, because the Chinese governance is based on ethics, not on power and control. So anyway, so now I'm gonna, what's going to happen tomorrow? I guess eventually maybe Vimeo is going to allow me to, go for a few more days, try to get me to, increase my, but I'm not going to. So what's going to happen is if you're on China Tech Newsflash and those first 100 videos go blank, I've decided this is such a pain in the neck. What I'm going to do is if you want to keep supporting my China Tech Newsflash on Patreon, please do that. I have one for China Rising and one China Rising Radio Sinoland and one for China Tech Newsflash. If you want to keep your support for me on the China Tech Newsflash, but I'm not going to be adding any more videos there. I'll just simply let those supporters know that I'm going to start putting them on China Tech Newsflash and China Rising Radio Sinoland, and try to get people to and ask people to please support me. In fact, better yet, just support me by PayPal, because Patreon is taking a huge chunk of what of the little amount that I'm getting as it is. So actually, PayPal, and a lot of people don't like PayPal because it's a monopoly. It has no real global competition outside of China. And so that's where I'm at. That's my rant about Patreon, and I just wish, this reminds me, WhatsApp. Remember WhatsApp? WhatsApp, was out there. And they were trying to charge $1 a year. Remember that? Way back in the early 2000s, early 2010s, 2010, 2011. They were trying to, whenever it came, they were wanting to charge $1, 99 cents a year. Then WeChat came out, and it was so much better. I mean, it was just like no comparison. That's Tencent, one of the biggest tech companies in the world. All of a sudden, WeChat had competition, and big competition. Well, they immediately lost the Chinese market, and a lot of people around the world use WeChat. And so they dropped the 99-cent request, and WeChat still runs circles around WhatsApp. And, of course, now WhatsApp's been bought by techno-fascist Facebook. So this just goes to show you, and everybody says, oh, the Chinese, they just copycat. No, that's not true. They are tech leaders. To sit there and say they copied WhatsApp is a bit of a joke, because WeChat does 10 times more than WhatsApp. It's the Chinese for 5,000 years were the technical leaders in human civilization, except for the 100 years before 1949, when the communists took over, and back when the West was plundering, pillaging, and raping China and plying it with illegal opium, morphine, and then heroin up into the 1940s, all legally done by the West. So the Chinese, bigger, better, faster, smarter, cheaper, and I hope one day that Patreon has to go compete against the Chinese, and maybe they'll actually do something about their very, very, very mediocre system, and their complete and total nonchalance about trying to listen to the customer and make things better. Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland, China Now, and China Tech Newsflash. Have a wonderful day.